I am delighted that Andrea Horwath is able to join us this afternoon. Many of you know that she was an elected municipal leader in the city of Hamilton from 1997 to 2004. As a city councillor, she chaired the Solid Waste Management Committee and the Municipal Nonprofit Housing Committee, so she understands these and other pressures on municipal governments. Andrea's strong community interests and municipal knowledge found a new home as a MPP when she left for Queen's Park in 2004. She became the leader of the provincial NDP in 1909. 1909. What am I talking about? 2009. She's way too young for that. 2009. We know her to be extremely passionate and thoughtful about large-range provincial issues that touch municipal governments and certainly our residents. Delegates, please help me welcome Andrea Horwath, leader of the New Democratic Party of Ontario. Andrea.
Well, good afternoon. Bonjour, mes amis. Il est un plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. Mayors, councillors, municipal staff, AMO staff, it's great to be back here at AMO. And to President Gary McNamara, I was going to say thank you very much for those kind words, but since you made me 100 years older than I am, I'm not sure I want to do that, but I'm only kidding. I do want to thank the Mayor for his kind words, the President of AMO for his kind words, and also for his tireless work as the President of this organization. AMO is an incredibly strong voice for our communities. And I'm looking forward to working with President Dolan in the coming months as she takes the helm. I also want to thank, of course, Mayor Dilkins and Warden Bain for hosting us here in Windsor in Essex County. Most of you know we're actually in the hometown of a man that you know well. He was a councillor here in Windsor, Percy Hatfield. Served as AMO's vice president and chair of your large urban caucus. And now, of course, Percy, absolutely, Percy is my right-hand man on municipal issues. In fact, I'm proud that so many members of today's NDP caucus come to Queen's Park with the experience of having served on council, and I too, as the mayor mentioned, or as the president mentioned, had the privilege of serving on council back home in Hamilton. And then, of course, since I've mentioned Percy, I wanted to also mention we have a number of other NDP MPPs here. In fact, over half my caucus has joined us here at the AMO convention. So we have Percy, of course, Taras Natashak is here, Teresa Armstrong, Peggy Sattler, Catherine Fife, stand up folks, Jennifer French, Paul Miller, Mike Mantha, Sherry DeNovo, Jagmeet Singh, and John Vantoff. Over half of the NDP team is here to be with you at this convention. Look, there's a strong connection between New Democrats and municipal leaders. We speak up for folks who need a stronger voice. We know that our public services are the cornerstones of our communities. And we are working hard to build a better future where families are better paid, businesses are hiring, and young people have the opportunities that they need in big cities and in rural communities alike. A future where we tackle the roots of inequality and homelessness, invest in housing, hospitals, and schools, and where every corner of this province can share in the benefits of our prosperity. But to build a stronger Ontario, we need a new approach. It has to start with a new approach to governing, particularly at the provincial level. And if I might be so bold as to say, I believe that will require a new government. A government that respects municipalities, restores our public services, and takes action to lower hydro bills for the people of this province. And those are exactly the kinds of priorities that I wanted to talk to you about today. 8 years ago, in the early days of the upload agreement, it's fair to say that there was hope for a better relationship. It was a compromise on your part and an act of good faith. But you weren't just trying to fix the damage done by downloading under the Conservatives. You were hoping for a new era of respect. Frankly, that new era never arrived. And on so many issues, municipalities have been forced to lead alone. From fighting to keep good jobs at a time when 300,000 men and women have lost their manufacturing jobs, to keeping our communities safe and clean, to tackling the crisis of affordable housing in the absence of any form of leadership at the federal and provincial levels. Dans bien des domaines, les municipalités sont le fer de lance du progrès. But to make real progress, we all know that you need a trustworthy partner at Queen's Park. And that's just not what you have today. Think about the issue of joint and several liability. Liberal cabinet ministers promised that they would fix it. But those very same Liberal cabinet ministers turned around and broke that promise to you. And in Niagara Falls last summer, President McNamara alluded to the growing sense of frustration at AMO. We need to fix that. We need to move forward together and build a stronger relationship between municipalities and a new provincial government. We need to restore the basic trust that we're in this together, working to solve problems together, and working to serve the people who've elected us both. To do that, we need to put the focus on the priorities of the people that we serve. And that brings me to the second point that I want to make today. Protecting our public services is crucial for every municipality. That's why you're asking the question, what's next, Ontario? But for 20 years, we've seen a very different direction at Queen's Park. The Conservatives were intent on downloading services and costs onto your shoulders. Pendant 5 ans, ils ont essayé de fermer l'hôpital Montfort. Et la communauté francophone a dû se battre pour que son hôpital reste ouvert. I worry. I worry that the basic impulse to cut services and shift costs onto your balance sheets is still at the core of the Conservative Party. It seems to be part of their DNA. Meanwhile, now we see the Liberals making the deepest cuts to public services since the last Conservative government and selling off public assets that even they didn't privatize. Over the past 18 months, 1,400 nurses and hundreds more healthcare workers have been cut. Hospitals from Michigan are actually hiring nurses here in Windsor. And on top of the cuts to healthcare, hundreds of local schools have closed, their doors shuttered since the Premier took office. Those cuts are not just numbers. Those decisions affect people's lives. Families will leave town if they can't get health care or walk their kids to school. Businesses will refuse to invest in small towns if they're only getting smaller. It's hard enough that so much of a rural Ontario, of our rural parts of this province, still don't have broadband in the year 2016. It's hard enough that our communities face a $60 billion infrastructure deficit. But the last thing we need is to keep cutting and closing public services that people count on. Il nous faut une nouvelle approche. We need a bold new commitment by a bold new government to value public services the way that you do. Rather than closing our classrooms, we should be opening up community hubs. We should be opening up schools so that people and community groups can use that space. Rather than freezing hospital budgets, funding should be keeping up with inflation and population growth, at the very least, each and every year. And on top of that, hospital funding must always reflect the unique challenges of running a hospital and delivering health care in rural and northern communities, communities that deserve no less. And rather than giving tax cuts to the wealthiest, most profitable corporations, rather than giving CEOs an HST tax break on their luxury box seats at hockey games, which is exactly what the Liberals have done, we must start putting people first for a change. That's exactly why we need to protect our public services. And it's also why we need to lower our hydro bills for families, businesses, and your municipalities. I know that many of you have been working hard to cut costs and cut emissions. And that's incredibly important work because the fight against climate change is one of the most important fights of our lives. But the provincial government has been painfully slow to act. And too often, they've sowed confusion, like their on-again, off-again plan to ban the use of natural gas for home heating. I want you to know the New Democrats will keep working to make sure that Ontario's climate change plan is fair, that it's effective, and that it's fully transparent. For our action on climate change to actually work, we need to make sure that low-income families, Northerners, and your municipalities are not stuck paying the highest price while the big polluters are let off the hook. The fact is, we're all paying too much for hydro already. Look next door, either side. Our neighbors in Manitoba and Quebec both have public hydro, and they pay rates half of what we pay. Our rates have more than tripled since the Conservatives started privatizing our electricity system. And today, local businesses and ordinary people are struggling to pay the bills. Since this Premier took office less than 4 years ago, peak hydro rates have increased by over 50%. And now, her decision to sell off Hydro One will put our hydro prices at the mercy of private profit, not the public interest. Worst of all, by selling Hydro One, the Liberals are giving up hundreds of millions of dollars of annual revenues that should be funding infrastructure, not padding the profits of private investors. Let's admit it. Soaring hydro bills and the choice to sell off Hydro One are the centerpiece of this government's failure and will be the legacy of this Premier. I know that many of you have spoken out against the sale of Hydro One. Je vous remercie pour votre leadership. I've heard you, and I fully support you. Our entire province needs leadership that's listening, and we need to see a real commitment to do 3 things. We need to cut the cost of hydro for families, businesses, and your municipalities now. We need to take a serious look at how rates are being set, and we need to stop the privatization of our hydro system. Today, here at AMO, I want you to know that an NDP government will get the job done. First, we will lower hydro bills by immediately taking the HST off of hydro. The HST should have never, ever been slapped on an essential item, like the hydro that families need to keep the lights on. But the Liberals chose to add the HST to families' hydro bills, and they did it on the same day that they started cutting corporate taxes for the wealthiest corporations. The contrast in priorities couldn't be more stark. I hoped that the Premier would reverse that decision, but instead, she hired a banker, Ed Clark, to tell her how to help other bankers and traders profit off the sale of our public hydro. That's not what a Premier should be doing. There is no reason to drive up costs for hardworking families, and there's no excuse for ignoring the pressure that millions of families face every month when they sit down at the kitchen table and open up their bills. People hold their breath and wait to see how much more they'll have to pay this month. I'm determined to get relief for millions of families. By taking the provincial HST off hydro, New Democrats will lower hydro bills by 8% right away for the families of this province. We'll help folks breathe a little easier when they pay the bills. That's the first step we'll take. And we'll do even more. We will put what's right for ratepayers at the heart of our electricity system. We will focus on lowering hydro bills for all consumers and building a sustainable, affordable hydro system that helps create jobs and grow the economy for decades to come. We'll work with energy experts and regulators, industrial consumers and major power users, municipal leaders, businesses large and small, and individual consumers and advocates too. We will outline a comprehensive vision for an affordable, sustainable energy future over the next 20 years and a practical roadmap of how we get there. We'll take a hard look at what needs to be done to fix the Ontario Energy Board so it can protect consumers and set rates that actually work for the people who pay the bills. And yes, we will stop the privatization of our electricity system. Frankly, I want to start to try to reverse it. For nearly 20 years, Conservative and Liberal governments have made politically motivated hydro decisions in secret, behind closed doors. My commitment to you today is that New Democrats will put the people of this province in the driver's seat and make decisions that don't work for the government's friends, but actually work for all of us. We will lower hydro bills. We will protect consumers and support businesses. And we will stop the reckless sell-off of Hydro One. Mayors, councillors, staffers, there's no doubt in my mind that we can make choices that help people and build a stronger province. We just need a government that puts the right priorities first. We can have an energy policy and hydro system that works for people. And we can do even more. We can invest in our hospitals and our schools. We can stop the cuts and start to show respect for the public services you provide each and every day. And we can build a much better, much stronger relationship between a new provincial government and your municipalities. We can do it by focusing on the priorities of people and delivering real solutions that work for all of us. That's what it's going to take to build a better future in this province. A future that all of our communities can share and that our young people, your children, and your grandchildren can be part of. So, together, let's get to work, and together, let's make it happen. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Merci beaucoup. Miigwech.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for your remarks and thoughts, and I do apologize for my little slip. But we certainly appreciate your participation at every AMO, and you've been to every AMO as a party leader, but even beyond that, as a councillor of the City of Hamilton, you were also a participant to our convention. We hope your time with us this year, both at the plenary and at your meetings with our delegates, have been thought-provoking and certainly well rewarding. On behalf of AMO, we certainly want to continue to work with you and certainly with all of your caucus members in continuing to make a very, very strong Ontario, and it starts right at the municipal level. We all know that, you get that, and everybody gets that in this room. And so we're certainly looking forward to continue to work with you, and through the leadership of our new president, she will certainly work very hard on our behalf. So I would ask all of the delegates here today, right now, to thank Andrea Horwath, and certainly with all of their caucus members that are here at our conference. So again, on behalf of all of us, thank you.